Happy Thanksgiving, gamers. We're talking food decks. Thanksgiving special, obviously. First off, what is food? If you don't already know, this is food. It's 2 mana. You tap and sack. You gain 3 life. Pretty simple, pretty good. All right. There's a couple of decks that'll use this guy. We call him the classic food boys. Academy Manufactor. He's not a commander, but he's in every food deck if you want to be quite efficient. He says if you would create a clue, food, or treasure, instead create one of each. So you make a food, you get a clue and a treasure. Make a clue, you get a food and a treasure, etc. You get the gist. We got this guy. He is from the Wilds of Eldraine set. Bernard, Ginger Sculptor. Each creature you control that's a food or a golem gets +2/+2 and has trample. Sick. Who cares? Whenever another non-token creature you control dies, you may exile it. If you do, create a token that's a copy of that creature, except it's basically a 3/3, and you can eat it. So, pretty good. It turns your stuff into food. So you want to have like food token stuff and all these little synergies and everything. Then we got Sam, Loyal Attendant. I'd put him in the Bernard deck because he's the right colors, and because you get access to blue. But basically, his ability is at the beginning of combat, you make a food, and foods cost 1 less to eat, if that makes sense. He comes with this guy, his lover Frodo. So you get black instead of blue, which I think is not the best, but you can still do some crazy stuff with just Sam himself. We're gonna talk round 1, all right? Because we're eating, so this is round 1. Displace dinosaurs. Basically, as a historic permanent enters the battlefield under your control, it becomes a 7/7 dinosaur. Okay, you make a food, it's a 7/7. So Bernard makes that at 9/9. Sam makes a 7/7 every combat. Pretty good, pretty crazy. They do have summoning sickness, so you can't swing them, but you give your creatures haste somehow. I don't know. You figure that out on your own. WinCon, right here. Great card from Doctor Who. Then we got Jaheira, Friend of the Forest. By the way, round 1 is green, mostly. So, yeah. That way, you can go through the colors a little bit. Jaheira, Friend of the Forest. Tokens you control, food, have tap, and you add a green mana. So you just get to turn all your food into mana dork. So Sam says you make a mana dork every combat, which is pretty crazy. And they don't have summoning sickness because they're not a creature. They're just a token. They're just food, right? So you can just make mana with them, which is crazy good. So yeah, you just leave them as mana rocks until you need them. Same thing. Knight of the Sweet's Revenge is 4 mana. You make a food on your own, and then food specifically have tap, add green mana. And then for 7, you can sack it, give a bunch of stuff a boost, where that's the number of foods you control. So you can, tap all your food for green, sack this, and then win, if that makes sense. If you have a lot of food, so you make them all 7/7s, etc. Pretty good. Definitely a lot cheaper than Jaheira and Displace Dinosaurs, and it's still pretty much the same effect. Back for seconds. All right, we're talking blue. Cyberdrive Awakener, flying. Other artifact creatures you control have flying, and Cyberdrive Awakener enters the battlefield until end of turn. Each non-creature artifact you control becomes an artifact creature with base power and toughness 4/4. So yeah, they would, as long as you have the food out before this guy comes in, they won't have summoning sickness like you have them a turn before, kind of thing. Because I believe if you just summon them this turn and then you turn them into creatures, they still have summoning sickness. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I know that's sort of how it works with crewing stuff. So I believe it's the same thing. But Cyberdrive Awakener, they all fly over people and they just bonk in for a lot of damage because you make food really easily. Then we got Urza, Lord High Artificer. He makes a construct that gets stronger for each food you have. You could tap your food to add blue, so it's the same thing as Jaheira, basically. Pretty cool. And then you can shuffle and pay stuff. He's good. Everyone knows about Urza. But no one thinks about him as a food commander or a food combo piece. He's pretty fun. And then we got Mechanized Production. This is just silly goofy, okay? You make it on food token, right? You enchant an artifact you control. At the beginning of your upkeep, create a token that's a copy of enchanted artifact. Then if you control 8 or more artifacts with the same name as one another, you win the game. So you make a food, then you put Mechanized Production on it. It's called food, right? and then you make 8 of those, or 7 more, I guess, 7 or 6 more, and then you win. Awesome, absolutely awesome, pretty good. Thirdsies, we're talking black. If you're playing that the precon, or you playing them as partners, we got Mirkwood bats. Ugh, I've lost Mirkwood bats plenty of times. It's pretty good. Flying, and then whenever you create or sack a token, each opponent loses 1 life. You have Samwise out, you make a token on combat, and then you eat it. Everyone loses 2 life. Oh, absolutely brutal. You make a ton of food off an X spell or whatever, everyone loses X life, and then for a discount, you crack them all, gain 1 billion life. Everyone loses life. Crazy good Mirkwood bats. A little bit of a cooler one. We got Braid's Arisen Nightmare. At the beginning of your end step, you may sack an artifact. Don't worry about the rest of it. And if you do, each opponent may sack an artifact. And if they don't, they lose 2 life and you draw a card. So basically, you make a food. You make a couple food. Then you sack a food at the end of your turn. And your opponent's not going to sack their Soul Ring. Not going to sack their Arcane Signet. They're going to take that 2 life. Unless they're already playing an artifact, clue, token, blood, whatever deck as well. Then they'll sack it. But what are the odds all of your opponents are doing that, right? So you're going to get value out of this card. And you don't need all that much food all the time. So people losing life, you're drawing cards. Awesome. Based card. Based Arisen Vamp Nightmare, am I right? Okay. And we got Witch of the Moors, which I think is quite a good one. Death Touch. In the beginning of your end step, if you gain life this turn, which you obviously did, you just eat a food and you gain 3 life. Each opponent sacks a creature, and you return 1 target creature from your graveyard to your hand. You know how crazy that is? Everyone has to... It's a board wipe every turn. Not a board wipe exactly, but basically if you get board wipe, you play this, you eat a food. It's crazy. Everyone has to sack. It sucks. Sacrificing your own dude sucks. And this, you're gaining life. How are we going to kill you? If you just eat a food and then we have to kill ourselves. Awesome. Definitely based. Let's talk dessert. These are some of the colorless silly guys I found that I think are pretty cool. Sir Ginger, the Meal Ender. He has Trample, Hexproof, and Haste. If you're playing against a Planeswalker guy. Might not always come up, but it could. And then whenever you eat a food, you put a +1 counter on him and scry 1. So it's basically just even more value out of your food. You eat a food, you scry 1, you get a +1 counter on this guy. And then you could sack him and gain life equal to his power. Which is crazy good, because you can just have him block and then tap and then eat, and he blocked and you gain a bunch of life. And you're scrying, so you have card selection, because you know what you're going to get next. Pretty good. Quite good for just eating your food. Sir Ginger. Then we got Well and Lost Dreams, which I think is pretty underrated, but it's probably rated just as well. I don't talk to many people. They don't let me out of my cage all that often. Well and Lost Dreams, 4 mana. Whenever you gain life, you may pay X, where X is less than or equal to the amount of life you gained. If you do, draw X cards. So, you eat a food, you gain 3 life. You could pay 1 to 3 life to draw 1 to 3 cards. That is great. It turns them into pseudo clue tokens as well. You gain 3 life, and you can pay 3 mana to draw a card. A 1-for-1 is a great deal for card draw. You know what I mean? There's a lot of things that you have to pay a lot more to draw cards. You have to pay life. You have to do sacrifice things. You got to do all this and that and this. Nope, you just eat a food, pay a little bit of mana. You can draw basically as many cards as you want if you have enough food for it and enough mana. Well, Lost Dreams is pretty good. Now this one, I love this one. Nuka-Cola Vending Machine. So this is from the Fallout set that hasn't come out yet. But when it does, I'm sure every food deck is going to run this because it's crazy good. It's 1 and tap. Create a food token. Okay, that's fine. But its second ability is where it really gets good. Whenever you sacrifice a food, create a tapped treasure token. Okay, so you know how I was talking about Well Lost Dreams being like card draw? This is even better. You eat a food, and if you don't have Samwise, right, which I don't know why you wouldn't have Samwise, he's great, or Sam, the loyal attendant, your food costs 2 to crack, but you basically only have to pay 1 to crack your food, okay, with Nuka-Cola Vending Machine out. If you have Sam, you pay 1, and then you get your mana back next turn, which is crazy. And if you have the Academy Benefactor, whenever you make a food token, you make a treasure token, and then whenever you sacrifice a food, you make a treasure token, which makes you a food token again, and a clue token if you need the card draw. So basically, it's just keeping you in this weird cycle loop of things, of food and everything, where you have a lot of mana, a lot of life, card draw if you need it. Crazy good. I'm excited for Nuka-Cola vending machine. Yeah, but that's it. That's it, gamers. I hope you all have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Yeah, if you need someone to chat with, I'll be in the comments. But yeah, I hope everyone has a lovely Thanksgiving. How do you guys feel about honey baked ham? Question for the comments. I love honey baked ham. I think it's better than turkey, and I'll leave you guys with that.